Happy New Year and welcome back to the Fitness Edda. I am your host, Eric Castiglione, owner and head coach of Viking Athletics. And in this installment, since it is the new year and a lot of people frequently set a New Year's resolution to lose weight, I want to talk about how much weight you can safely lose in one shot, how to go about doing it, and why there's frequently a mismatch between what people think is happening and what's actually happening, especially if they've already lost weight in the past. So before we get started, if you enjoy these videos, please give us a like, give us a subscribe, comment if you have any questions, if you have other topics that you'd like to see covered, let us know. That's what we're here for. So what are we going to be covering today? I'm going to give a quick answer to the question, how much can you safely lose? We're going to talk about TDEE, which is your total daily energy expenditure. We're going to go through an example to show what it might look like for somebody trying to lose weight. And we're going to cover metabolic adaptation. It's important to understand what that is, especially because I see a lot of people, if you've ever done a nutrition challenge in the past, and I know a lot of our members have, they try to do the same thing that they did previously on their own, and this time it doesn't work. And the question is why? So understanding metabolic adaptation will shed some light on that, and hopefully it will give people some strategies to continue their weight loss journey if they so choose. If you're a coach, it's important to understand this so that you can help your clients. So quick answer. First, we need to know, how long is one shot? How much can you lose in one shot? We typically don't want to be in a caloric deficit for longer than 10 to 12 weeks. So we're talking 2.5, 3 months tops, a quarter of the year. Any longer than that, and you're going to run into some severe side effects, and we're going to cover that when we get to metabolic adaptation. So how long is one shot? No more than 12 weeks. What is a safe rate of loss? 0.8 to 1% of your total body weight per week. So what does that come out to? 10% of your body weight. You should lose no more than 10% of your body weight in one shot. The caveat to this is if you are dealing with a client that is severely obese, the more weight you have, the more weight you can lose. So in relative terms, we say 10% because a 300-pound person can lose 30 pounds in one shot safely. A 150-pound person probably isn't going to lose more than 15 pounds in one shot. Going back to the 300-pound person, it is possible, depending on what their habits are and what their body composition is, it is possible that they might lose more than 10%, especially if they're brand new to training and they haven't done anything and they have not a whole lot of muscle mass, but a ton of adipose tissue. So we say 10% to be on the safe side, to prevent severe side effects. But if you are heavier, you might be able to go a little bit more. So TDEE, total daily energy expenditure. What is this? It is the total amount of calories that you are burning in a day. And if we look at the chart, the breakdown, there's 4 components to it. Your basal metabolic rate, your BMR, is the biggest component of this for most people. You've got your thermic effect of food, which can account for about 10%. That is the energy that it requires to break down and digest and absorb the nutrients out of your food. So I'm sure people have heard it takes money to make money. Same thing, it takes calories to break down food into calories. That counts for 10% of your daily expenditure. We've got non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT, and we've got EAT, exercise activity thermogenesis. So a lot of people think the more that they exercise, the more calories they're going to burn, and they can lose weight that way. To a certain extent, yes. I don't like to include that in my calculations for people. Okay, I burned 500 calories today, so I can eat 500 calories to offset that. We frequently overestimate how many calories we burn by doing exercise. none of the trackers are accurate when it comes to that, especially because, and I've covered this in previous videos, the more you exercise, the more efficient your body becomes at exercising, and the fewer calories you're going to burn for doing that same exercise. So don't like to use that. I'm glad this chart lists that as only 5%. Non-exercise activity thermogenesis, we include walking in this. Walking for most people does not elicit enough of a heart rate change to count as actual purposeful exercise, but at the same time, it does elevate your heart rate and gets you moving. It's good for blood flow. There's a slew of other benefits associated with it, and it can account, it says on the chart here, 15%. If you are working a manual labor job and you are averaging like 30,000 steps a day, it can be up to 50% for some people in some cases. So there's a lot of wiggle room there. That'll be important later. But why do we care about TDEE? In order to gain weight, I need to be consuming more calories than I'm expending. So if my total daily energy expenditure, we'll make it easy, is 2,000 calories, if I'm eating 2,000 calories, I will stay at the weight that I'm at. If I'm eating more than that, I will probably gain weight. If I'm eating less than that, I will probably lose weight. Now, there is an important caveat to that. Your TDEE is a range, not a number. A lot of people think of it as one number right here, so my red dotted line, and if I'm even 5 calories above that on a consistent basis, I'm going to gain weight. No, that's not the way it works. It's more of a range. I've got an upper bound and a lower bound shown here. Anything that falls within this range, as long as we're hovering along this line, isn't going to change your adipose tissue. You're not going to gain weight. You're not going to lose it. So you can have one meal in a blue moon. Steak is very caloric, but let's say you treat yourself to a nice steak dinner. A 10-ounce strip steak has over 1,000 calories in it. So if I have that, plus appetizers, plus sides, plus a dessert, plus a drink, very, very easy to hit 4,000 to 5,000 calories in a meal. Doing that one time, my body is going to force me back into this range here. We live in a realm of what's called homeostasis. It's the way things are. And you have these buffers, and you have checks and balances in your body. The body does not want to change. It wants to stay where it is. So it's an equilibrium state. And as long as we are consistently within this range, we're good. If I go above or below for one day, I'm going to bounce back into that range. In order to change anything, we need consistent overconsumption or underconsumption. Consistent is key here. The way I like to think of this, in order to change water into water vapor, in order to evaporate water, I need to boil the water. But that means I heat the water to 212 degrees Fahrenheit. And once it's at a rolling boil, what happens? Nothing initially. The water is still boiling. It takes more energy to get that boiling water to evaporate. And you don't see anything until it happens. So if I'm in this range here and I'm going up and up and up and I'm at the upper bound and I'm slightly above, until I get far enough above this bound, I'm not going to gain weight. Or, better example, since we're talking about weight loss, if I'm below this bound, I have to stay under long enough to force a change. It's the same thing. It's all energy. My background in engineering in college, I was studying nanotechnology. We did a lot of quantum states, energy states. Another perfect example. You have a discrete range where I can only exist at this bound, and then I apply more energy and nothing happens. I apply more energy and nothing happens. I apply more energy and then I suddenly jump up to this bound. And then I apply more energy and nothing happens, more energy and nothing happens, and then I'm up to the next state. To me, that's another helpful way of understanding this, is you feel like nothing's happening until it does. And it's that energy storage or that lack of energy consistently over time that forces it to change. So let's take an example. When we calculate total daily energy expenditure, again, it's all an estimation. We use people's body weight. There are various ways to do this. For the purpose of this example, I'm using simple numbers with actual nutrition clients. I have them go through a body scan, and based on lean muscle mass and total fat mass, we can come up with a little bit more pointed of an estimation. And then, of course, activity levels play into this. So we've got an active 250-pound male. This would be somebody that is actively training for an hour or more, 4 to 5 days per week, and averaging over 10,000 steps a day on top of that. We would use a multiplier of 15. So to estimate how much energy they're expending, body weight times that multiplier gives us 3,750 calories. So this person can eat close to 4,000 calories and not gain any weight. In fact, for the exercise that they're doing, we want them to be eating that. Which goes to show, for a lot of people, you are probably under eating if you are very physically active. That's a common problem in the CrossFit world. Anytime we've done a nutrition challenge, it is amazing how many people start eating it at what we're recommending for them. And even in a weight loss phase, the calories that we're prescribing is higher than what they're doing now. And they eat more and they lose weight and they don't understand it. We'll get into that with metabolic adaptation. But point is, we have our baseline for this, 3,750 calories. The male's goal is to lose 25 pounds or 10% in 12 weeks. What does that break down to? Just over 2 pounds per week. 1 pound of body fat that is stored is roughly 3,500 calories. So if I can lose 3,500 calories, if I'm in a net deficit for a week of 3,500 calories, I'm losing 1 pound. Since our goal is 2.08 pounds per week, we need to be in a weekly caloric deficit of 7,280 calories. What does that break down to daily? We need to be in a daily caloric deficit of 1,040 calories. If my maintenance here is 3,750, I just subtract 1,040 from that, and I get 2,710 calories. So for this person, we would put them in a deficit of 1,040 calories by consuming 2,710 every day. That is the goal. Continuing this example, after 12 weeks, assuming everything works out nicely, they're down 25 pounds and they are now at 2,710 calories per day. But if we look at that new body weight, our initial multiplier was 15. If we divide current calories by 15, that brings us to a body weight of just over 180 pounds. If we divide by their current body weight, their multiplier has gone from 15 down to 12. So what gives? Are we going to continue to lose weight after 12 weeks if we keep them at 2,710 calories? Maybe. For somebody that is that active, probably not. We can't lose weight indefinitely. And a lot of people think they can continue for year after year in a deficit. If that were true, we would eventually get to weigh 0 pounds. Which sounds silly, but if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. The body does not want us to starve to death, so weight loss will be curbed. In this case, we now have a mismatch between their multiplier and their body weight and their calories. So, in order to explain this, we need to understand metabolic adaptation. So what has happened is, over the 12 weeks, their total daily energy expenditure has decreased. And that makes perfect sense, right? They were at maintenance at 3,750. They're now at maintenance at 2,710. And what does maintenance mean? It means you're no longer gaining or losing weight. So how does that happen? Your BMR drops, your metabolism, your base metabolic rate, your metabolism slows down. So what is the BMR? That's if you just laid in bed all day and did nothing, that's how many calories you would burn. Your body will shift energy from non-essential processes, or it will become more efficient at them in order to expend less energy. The extreme example that I always use for this is when you have a teenage female with an eating disorder, they will frequently lose their periods. Reproduction is a non-essential process, so the body sacrifices energy from that and instead focuses on survival. We get the same thing for men. If they drop too much weight too fast, if they're constantly starving themselves, you'll see a drop in their testosterone, their sex drive will drop. It's the same thing. The body is shuttling energy from one function to another that is essential to keep you alive. We also have mechanisms in place to decrease your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Now, if you work a manual labor job, that part doesn't change, but maybe you're one of those people that has restless leg syndrome, or you're constantly fidgeting, you've got nervous energy, whatever, you'll see that drop. We also know that fat storage is primed, so if you are chronically low in your calories and then you eat a very high fatty, high caloric meal, your body is going to be more efficient at storing the excess calories into fat. So when we consider all of this, and that has nothing to do with calories, that's just another adaptation. When we consider all this, if my BMR dropped and my NEAT dropped, while my activity multiplier was 15, I'm now burning fewer calories because I've been in a deficit for so long. My multiplier has now dropped to 12. It makes sense. My energy expenditure is going down to compensate for the fact that I was eating less. So we see this not just after an initial period of weight loss, it continues over time. So back to the people that have attempted to lose weight in the past and dropped weight and then gained it back. That can be explained away by your fat storage being primed. And then you are now back at a higher body weight with a lower total daily energy expenditure. So you may shoot back up. Going back to our example, we had a 250-pound man drop to 225. Let's say post-diet, he throws caution to the wind and goes back to doing what he's doing. This is where we get yo-yo dieting. Because he's primed for fat storage, it's actually going to be easier for him to gain weight than it was previously. And he may end up weighing 255, 260. This is where we see yo-yo dieting. This is why the Biggest Loser doesn't work. And not to scare anybody, this can happen, but most frequently we see this happen with people that do extreme weight loss, more than 10%. And also it's for people that just after a weight loss phase throw caution to the wind and go back to doing whatever fuckery they were doing in the first place. So how do we combat this? How do we get that multiplier back up to 15, which is our goal here? We need a maintenance phase, also known as a reverse diet. And we're trying to get the mirror image here where we increase the daily energy expenditure without increasing our body weight. So we mentioned before, in order to get this to drop, I need to be consistently out of bounds. With a reverse diet or maintenance phase, we want to stay towards the upper limit of the upper bound. I want to stay in this bound without going over. And we're going to do this through a planned caloric increase. So for how long does this whole process take? Fat loss, that would be a pretty fast fat loss phase, 10% in 12 weeks. You're going to maintain at 2,710 calories for an additional 2 weeks after that. You may even see some continued weight loss, but we want to maintain the calories there. And then we're going to reverse diet for at least 12 weeks. I picked 12 weeks in this case because it's at least a 1-to-1 ratio. We want to maintain the reverse diet for at least as long as the fat loss period, if not 1.5 times as long, 2 times as long. So what we do here is we need to calculate the target goal for calories, and to get that multiplier back to 15, 225, the new body weight, times 15 would be 3,375 calories. If we break that down based on what they're doing now, the 2710, which is the fat loss and now maintenance, it gives us an increase. We need to increase by 665 calories. Divide that by 12 weeks. I'm increasing my intake slightly, so 55 calories per week. We're nudging up in that direction. And if you do this, we can get our total daily energy expenditure to increase. This is how you kind of speed up your metabolism. Again, if you look at the shape of the graph, it does level off up here. There is an upper limit to how much you can increase your total daily energy expenditure before you start gaining weight. As I said in the beginning, the body has a range, an equilibrium range where it likes to exist. We call that homeostasis. And it doesn't want to change. So we can nudge ourselves upward in that direction. You may see a gain of 1 to 2 pounds, something in there, maybe even 5 pounds. But by slowly increasing calories to the point where the weight then starts increasing at the end, we avoid that yo-yo. So crash dieting doesn't tend to work. Slow process. All said and done here, we're looking at 3 months of weight loss, 2 weeks of maintenance, and 3 more months of reverse dieting. Do the math. This is a total of 26 weeks. That's half a year. This is not a short process, and this is how we get long, sustaining results. So that is the example that we're using, is a 250-pound male. There are other ways of increasing. They're calculating your increase. There's one where you use kind of a compounding effect instead of, if you do the math here, a 55 calorie increase from 2710, that is a 2% increase, and it ends up being less than 2%. So once I get to 3,000 calories and I'm increasing from there by another 55, that's less than a 2% increase. There are ways of doing this where you're doing a percent increase each week, and you can get away with it that way. I just picked this method for ease of following math. Again, there's multiple equations to estimate total daily energy expenditure. The biggest thing is to monitor the scale. That's going to tell you what's going on. So if you have a check-in day of 1 day per week, keep it the same that day. Each week, same time. And from week to week, you monitor the trends, and that'll let you know what's happening. Are you gaining? Are you losing? If you're going to weigh every day, that's fine. Just make sure that you are using that check-in day from week to week to analyze trends long term. There's a lot of daily fluctuation that can go in. If I have a salty meal and I'm retaining water, if I had a higher carbohydrate meal, anything like that, I'm going to store water in my muscles. My glycogen stores are topped off. For ladies, if you are menstruating, you are going to likely retain weight before and during, and then after your weight will go back down. Just important things to consider when you're monitoring your weight. So, what is the end-all, be-all takeaway message here? Fat loss is a process. It's not going to happen quickly. For minimizing the effects, the metabolic adaptation that you have, we want to lose no more than 10% of your body weight over 12 weeks. You're going to go into a maintenance phase and then a reverse dieting phase to try to bring your calories back up. And it's going to take honestly half a year at least before you can start another fat loss phase. So if I'm trying to lose, if I am a 350 pound male and I'm trying to lose 200 pounds and get down to 150, it's going to take years. If you set yourself up with that expectation in mind, and I'm doing 3 months of loss, refeed, reverse diet, and then I go into another fat loss phase where I lose another 10%, you're going to have sustainable results. It'll keep the weight off as opposed to trying to do too much too fast, and then you end up messing up your metabolism. So I know of people that are hovering around 200 pounds and they're eating 1,800 calories a day, which I'm going to do the math there quickly. Let's say the person is active at least 3 times a week. We'll use a multiplier of 13 to be conservative. Maintenance at 200 pounds with that level of activity should be 2,600 calories, and they are 800 calories below that. Why? Because of metabolic adaptation. So if you are struggling to lose weight, you feel like you are eating, we'll see it with ladies especially, they're down to 1,200 calories. You should never be below 1,200 calories a day, ever. But we'll have people on 1,200 calories and they're not losing anything. It's because of metabolic adaptation. And so what we need to do is figure out what your maintenance should be and go from where you're at to try to increase up to that. So if you're already low on your calories and you're not losing, you need to do a reverse diet now, and then you can start fat loss from there. So that's the name of the game. There are numerous ways to get this done. If you are really stuck, hire a coach. That's what we're here for. There are other apps that are called quote-unquote coaching apps. And the difference between a coaching app and a tracking app is that a coaching app will adjust your calories from week to week based on what you're inputting. So it does require you to track your food. It does require you to weigh in at least once a week. And there's 3 that come to mind for coaching apps. So like MyFitnessPal is not a coaching app. It's just a tracker. Daily Macros was another one. There's several just tracking apps. The 3 coaching apps that come to mind are Renaissance Periodization, Carbon Diet app, and Macro Factor. And what they can help with is straight up macro calculations and calorie calculations. And as you check in, that'll change based on the goals that you input. What they do not help with are recipe suggestions, how to overcome obstacles that you might have. So if you are somebody that travels a lot for work and you can't figure out, eating meals at home, preparing your own food is not a viable option for the most part. This is where a human coach can help, is we are here to problem solve for you and come up with strategies and workarounds that are going to work for your lifestyle. If that is not a concern, have at it with the coaching apps. What's the difference between them? I have personally used Carbon and Macro Factor, and I am not endorsed by anybody. This is just me relating my own experience. I did not find Carbon to be very intuitive. I find Macro Factor to be very intuitive. I can tinker with things and it works better for me. Carbon was created by somebody that I really respect, Dr. Lane Norton, and I literally just heard him describe this and I had to laugh. When asked what the difference is between them, he basically said it's Apple versus Android. He said Carbon, we don't really allow you to tinker. It's simple to use. You plug in. It's very much like an Apple ecosystem. Macro Factor, he says, is more like an Android. And since I personally like to tinker and I do not find Apple to be intuitive whatsoever, can't stand the ecosystem, never mind my loathing of the company, I won't get into that. It makes perfect sense to me that I would gravitate more towards Macro Factor. As far as the Renaissance periodization app is concerned, I have not used it personally. My last experience with it was a gym member that I had that was using it, and this was pre-pandemic. I really hope they've updated the app since then. Based on what he was telling me, their calculations were solely based on your check-in day as opposed to the trend from week to week. So if you were weighing in every day and then you had a day where you weighed in high and that happened to be your check-in day, it would automatically cut calories, especially your carbs, which as a lifter slash CrossFitter was not beneficial for this person. Got to a point where he was extremely low carb and not great for performance. It also didn't help that his check-in day was Monday. I don't know that he had access to change that. That's why I'm hoping that RP has updated the app. It was during football season. So every Sunday, wings, pizza, beer, and he might be in his caloric range, but a lot of sodium, you balloon up, and he was heavy on the weigh-in days. So as a result, it just kept cutting carbs, cutting calories. And again, it was not analyzing all the data from the week. It was just looking at that one day, and it's, oh, you're up. You must clearly have gained weight or something's wrong. We need to cut calories. So regardless of whether you're working with a coaching app or a human coach or doing it on your own, we got to look at trends from week to week. Day to day is helpful as well, but also keep in mind what it is that you're eating and know that you can fluctuate in water weight 5 to 10 pounds in a day. It's not uncommon based on everything that's going on. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. Again, if you have questions, comments, you want to see something else covered, that's what we're here for. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.